Welcome back to Partnerships Unravelled, the podcast where we unravel the mysteries about partnerships and channel on a weekly basis. My name's Alex Whitford and I'm VP of Partnerships here at Channext. And this week, I'd like to welcome our special guest, Ard-Pieter. Ard, could you give us a bit of background about what you do, who you are, and why you're on the podcast today?
Yeah, I'm Ard-Pieter de Man. I'm a professor at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam, and I also work as a consultant to profit and not-for-profit. And I've almost dedicated my life to partnerships and ecosystems and collaboration. So both in research as in practice and advising companies about how to set up their ecosystem and how to govern their partnerships.
So we've literally brought the expert in, which is good.
I hope I didn't oversell myself.
Well, we're going to find out. We're going to give you a deep test today. So I think for our listeners, I'd love to get a bit in today's discussion, not just purely around the IT channel, which is what we spend a lot of our time, but get your insights into why partnerships are booming.
Yeah, I think we've seen a very long-term development in companies increasing their partnerships, but especially I think the past couple of years you see that it's really high on the agenda. And the reason is, the most important one is technology development. It's going so quickly that a company just cannot do everything on their own anymore. You cannot keep up with all the technologies, but also on the market side. And that's so the supply side is one thing with the technology. The market side is another element. We see more complex problems in clients, so you cannot solve them anymore on your own as a company. You need to do that together with a partner. And also to get into different market segments, it's impossible for one company to have in-depth knowledge about all the different market segments. So again, that requires partners to bring that specific information about the market to your organization. So I think both on supply and on demand side, so to speak, you see forces that lead to increased size of ecosystems.
Excellent. And so what you're talking there in the sort of IT vernacular, I suppose, would be the tech alliances, right? How do two organizations bring a product offering together? And then the more channel side of the ecosystem, which is then how do we take that to market at scale? I've really seen more recently that tech alliance start to boom, right? When we look at software players, Microsoft, AWS, Google, or even things like HubSpot Marketplace, Salesforce Marketplace, where do you see that growth coming from? Is it customers driving towards different things? What's affecting that change that we're seeing this boom?
Yeah, I think it's customers driving for this change, but it's also the scaling of the technology itself. The new technology enables a lot of what's going on in partnering. The real problem used to be with partnerships when I started out with that, which is right after the Middle Ages. The problem was you had alliance managers. And they were doing a great job, but they were also the big constraint, because how many partnerships can you handle as an alliance manager? And one alliance manager could perhaps have 10 partners, but if you had a really big partner, then one alliance manager wasn't enough to manage a very big global system integrator, for example. But with technology, you can really scale that and increase your bandwidth, and then the number of people you have is no longer the constraint in developing your partners.
And so we often see in the channel people using distribution to help scale that, but we're really still limited by the same factor, which is people. How do you really solve for that person-to-person thing? What can we automate? What can we use technology? And do people still have a role within partnerships?
Yeah, I think people still have a role, because also the relationship between people still is important, and that's often where it starts. Of course, you can maybe sell something kind of anonymously through a channel, and there's nothing wrong with that to get more simple sales. But if you're also talking about tech partnerships, you also need to work together to develop a solution. And then still people are important in that. And then you still need to think about how are we going to govern the partnership, and what are we going to, what's the strategic focus of this partnership. And that requires also people still sitting at the old-fashioned table and looking into each other's eyes and thinking, okay, can we do this type of business with these persons or not?
Yeah, my big rule is automate and use technology for literally everything that you can. and let people work with people, right? I think one of the things that we really see is people are chasing orders or whatever, or emailing marketing collateral across and then calling them and say, what are you doing with it? And actually what we should have people on is working just on the relationship element, and wherever we can, automate all other processes so that I can spend as much of my week having conversations like these.
Yeah, and I agree. And what we used to see, that a lot of time was spent on administration.
Yeah.
You know, what is our joint sales funnel? Often we didn't even know because it was across different silos. And then the alliance manager had to go out and find out in the company, what type of business are we actually doing with this co-sell partner? Yeah, all that can be automated now. And that frees up time to, like you say, for the relationship and to think more strategically about where are we heading with this partnership.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm continually fascinated when we look at it from an economics perspective, whenever there's a big technological change, the low-skilled worker at the bottom is eaten up and disappeared, but what is replaced is very high-skilled workers that are able to do the job of many, right? We've seen this in every leap forward in technology, and I think we're seeing this within the channel, maybe as AI comes in as well. I'm seeing support tickets, for example. AI is able to do the triage for 80-90% of support tickets, but then the 10% that's left, you need someone that's really, really highly skilled. Do you think we're going to see that same level of automation and AI change? And then that means we've got very senior stakeholders, very strategic stakeholders who are left?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a trend we're already seeing, actually. So the people are starting to focus on the complex things and the things that AI cannot handle, or that cannot be programmed into an algorithm or something like that. And that also means that where you're going to be distinctive as an organization is precisely on that. You're not going to be distinctive on just the technology per se. But you're going to be distinctive because you're able to manage that level of complexity and to do maybe the deals that others cannot do and that cannot be put online so easily.
So we're seeing partnerships booming. We're seeing technology play a critical role in elevating people to be more focused on people roles. But what specifically, if you're seeing these changes, what should we be looking for to make those changes and really drive success?
Well, what should we be looking for? I think as an individual company, you need really to think about the why. Why do I have these partners? Why do I have this ecosystem? And how are we going to distinguish ourselves from our competitors? Because I think we come from a time where you could see, if you go to the big GSIs, they're all doing the same thing. I mean, I don't want to offend anyone, but really, whether I go to PwC or KPMG, who cares? You know, they have the same offering. And if you get that, then you're going to end up with price competition, and you're probably not going to deliver a lot of value to your final customer. So I think we also need to rethink the why of partnering. So what type of partners do we need, and what kind of distinctive value propositions do we want to put into to the market? And that also requires finding partners that have very specific industry expertise, for example.
Yeah, for me, what's funny there is you actually need to build a 2 or even 3-sided why, right? There's the why to the end user. Why am I going to build this bridge? There's the why to the partner. What value are we providing to the partner, and how are we making them more successful? And there's the why for the tech alliance. And one of the reasons I see tech alliances fall apart a lot is they can be very one-sided. One party is getting almost all of the benefit, and then the bridge falls over, right?
Yeah, and that's I think where there's still kind of a mindset in IT that we need to push things out via the channel partners, for example. Whereas I think if you have a good ecosystem, it's bi-directional. You can also learn from your channel partners and from the other partners that you have and your tech partners, because they also see the market, and they may see a market segment that you were not aware of, or they may be in a certain geography where things really are going quite differently than in your own geography. And so I think you also need to organize for that bi-directionality in the ecosystem, and to learn from the partners and share the learnings with your partners.
Yeah, I think that's it's a really interesting concept. I think almost sometimes the SMB partners, right, the high volume of partners, they're almost disrespected, right? It's like, we're going to give you content, you're going to sell our products, and we're going to monetize you, and that's the sum game. Whereas actually, they're your feet on the street, they're your eyes and ears, and they should be, if you've got the right interconnected tissue, giving you the information that allows you to remain agile. And I want to touch on that agility piece. Most channels, because they deliver hyper scale, are very inagile. How can we ensure that we have that bidirectional communication and we are making accurate decisions effectively and quickly?
Yeah, I think that's partly a role of technology, that you can see what works in the market. You can look at the data of which partners are doing interesting stuff. But this is also where we can go back to the discussion we had earlier. This is also where the people business comes in. So can you actually co-create new solutions with clients? And that is where the agility should come from. It also is in your own organization. A lot of organizations are not organized properly to take advantage of the ecosystem that they're in. So they still have the silos. It's still unclear who's doing what in those organizations. Whereas, you can also have agile teams focus on a specific market segment or industry and develop solutions together with that industry and then bring them to a broader market.
Yeah, we're seeing this a lot, or certainly I'm seeing this a lot in startup scale-ups, right? Where they have typically a startup or a scale-up, they're not going to be building for the channel first, right? It's if you want to go far, build a channel and build an ecosystem. But if you want to go fast, direct usually wins because you maintain full control. But actually, we're now seeing this pivot point where I can get to 30 million ARR direct. So that's what I'm going to do. But then, I need to access new verticals or new markets. And then that's suddenly where I'm looking at ecosystems to build in a more scalable way. What would be your advice to those sort of scale-up leaders when deciding, should I go into an ecosystem and what best practices can I take?
Yeah, I think should I go into an ecosystem should no longer be the question, in my opinion. And so, because usually you are in an ecosystem already without knowing it. The partners are there already, or stakeholders are there, your clients are there. So I think that's kind of a question that we shouldn't ask anymore. But obviously, if you're a scale up, you may start with your direct sell model, and at one point to grow further and to scale further, you will need partners. I think there it comes back to again the strategy. What do we want to achieve? What are the valuable market segments? But also, you already have clients, and you'd be surprised that your clients can also be your partner, and they can also show a direction in which the market is developing. So also make use of what you have already, because the ecosystem, not just the partners, your clients are in there as well.
Yeah, we're always talking about the synergies between customer success and ecosystem management, because actually the practices that you have embedded in a direct organization for customer success are very transferable. And it's funny you talk about that innovation. It's incredible how many products have developed brilliantly based on customer feedback, where they go, it should do this. And that's the whole point, right? Your partners are able to go, we've deployed this technology in a way that you didn't think it should be deployed, and it's working brilliantly. And that's almost your landing motion into a new segment, right? Because you're getting that initial feedback. Yeah,
and then you can look at which partners can I use to bring this to the market, and for which market segments does this make sense. So that's really, the co-creation with the client is also a learning opportunity to think about, what partners do I need to, bring a solution to the market.
To me, I'm fairly obsessive about data, and why I love the ecosystem is I can stress test 1,000 different ideas almost simultaneously, right? We're not doing A/B testing, we're doing A, B, C, D, E, and F and onwards, because I can push it out into the ecosystem and let the ecosystem, because it's a living, breathing thing, decide for me, right? I don't need to have a hypothesis. I can say, right, guys, this is how we think it should work. Over to you, and let me know, and then we can double down on it once we know how it should work. What are the things that we can be measuring? What are the things that we can be looking for to get that look and feel back?
Yeah, I think in general, we tend to focus too much on measuring the revenue and the sales. And there's obviously nothing wrong with revenue and sales. That's what we all want. But it's often a short-term measure, and that's okay for some channels and some partnerships that you have. But if you want to test things in the market, like you said, then maybe it's much more interesting to see, how many people have actually clicked on our page or on the minimum viable product that we're offering. Have they looked at that? And even if no sales comes out, it's quite different. If nobody is interested in a site that announces a minimum viable product, which I know one company did without even having the minimum viable product, they just put a site out there and say, okay, we have this type of product. And they saw, a lot of people are clicking on this site and on this link. Apparently, that's interesting. So you can also think about these type of leading indicators. And that's also for sales. It's not necessarily the revenue, but how many people are certified in a certain technology? How many people have come to an event that we organized? And certainly if you start building new solutions together with clients, then measuring, do we have a proof of concept? Is there a first client that we can talk to? And the client maybe doesn't even have to pay anything. It could be just, can we test it at a client, and are they interesting? Those things are also very valuable to measure, especially if you look a bit further than the next quarter.
Yeah, for me, you're absolutely correct. I do a lot of funnel analysis here at Channext, right? We evaluate how deal velocity, deal size, conversion rates. But if I just looked at closed won revenue and took all my learning from there, there's 1,000 reasons deals aren't moving. Exactly. Right? And so if we just analyze, did the deal happen? No, it was a failure. And you go, well, we got all the way down here.
Is it incentives? Is it training? Is it what collateral that we made available? What is it? Can we figure that out?
I have a new favorite phrase, and my team would be rolling their eyes because I'm shouting it almost every day at this point. But it's there are no silver bullets, but there are 100 golden BBs, right? We need to keep iterating each element. And then we get this huge return because suddenly we've got the right message, we've got the right product, we're taking it to the right customer through the right partners, and now we've got an engine that's self-sustainable.
Yeah. So often it's and incentives and training and those kinds of things. And then to figure out what the right balance is, that's not that easy, but it is, I think, where the value lies.
Well, I think sometimes I get into into arguments with people, and they, channel doesn't work, direct is better, and I just pick a company. Tell me a massive company, because if they work in IT, they are all channel business. Anyone that's doing $1 billion revenue a quarter, I think every single one is in the co-sell space, right? Whether it's co-delivery, co-sell, distribution margin, there is all some iteration of the same thing, because for you to hit that hyper scale, you need support.
Yeah, and there are always going to be channel initiatives that fail, right? But the question is, do you learn from it? Why does it fail? And so failure as such is not an interesting thing. It's how can we improve it, and what are the causes then of failure? And we've seen certainly in the beginning when companies started with channels, we've seen huge failure rates. Yeah, obviously it's a new thing, but by now I think we know much better what's working. And I think companies that now say, the channel doesn't work, and I wonder, did you really try, or did you set it up to fail? Or did you do just one single experiment with one partner, and then for one reason or another it didn't work with that partner, and then at once we say, all partners are crap. That's not a logical way of thinking.
No, and what's really crazy, and I'm smirking because I hear it all the time. Oh, we've tried it, doesn't work. And then I think, were you there when you started building this business? Because I get no business in the world worked the first time round, right? Yeah. They all made 1,000 mistakes before they got their first deal, and then even then it wasn't working. And so you went through this entrepreneurial motion to build a direct go-to-market, and yet you're expecting, I don't need to go through an entrepreneurial motion to build a channel, which I would argue is actually more complicated, but with much higher upside.
Yeah, and a lot goes wrong internally as well in companies. I mean, where are the partner managers in the organization? For some, it may work fine to have them as sales. For others, it could be much better to have them in strategy, for example, or in BizDev. They're also not always incentivized in the right way. They're not always supported in the right way. So the people that are responsible for the partner programs, that's also a separate profession nowadays. And companies that are new to channels and partners do not always realize that it is a new profession that also requires specific knowledge and skills.
Yeah, I'm reminded of that Thomas Edison quote, right? I didn't fail 999 times. I learned how to not make a light bulb 999 times, but then it worked once, and that's all we need, right? Exactly. We only need it to work once, and then the model then works. And the great thing about the channel, and why I'm sort of obsessive about, we're not A/B testing, we're A through to Z testing, is I can try 7 different variations in 7 different partners to different end users, and I'm just waiting for that light bulb to turn on once, and then we go, right, we've got it. Now I'm going to dive in, and we're going to replicate this strategy on, and then continue to iterate, but we've got the foundation that we know works.
Yeah, and also here I think it should be bi-directional, because if you're talking to a prospective partner, you can also ask them what makes them tick. What will work for them? How do they see the partnership? And I still see a lot of organizations that do not really have this conversation, but they assume that the partner will probably want this. And I can tell you one thing from 25 years in partnerships and alliances, all those assumptions are always wrong. So one of the tricks I sometimes do is when there are 2 partners together and they want to set up a partnership, I give them just a sheet of paper and say, okay, each company write your top 3 things you want from this partnership and the top 3 things that you think the partner wants from this partnership. And then they have to show the paper to each other. It never matches. We always assume that a partner wants, revenue in this industry, but actually the partner doesn't care about that industry. Don't assume too much about what your partner wants. It's really a success factor also to discuss that with them and to learn from that. And that helps you to build a more effective channel partner.
And I think this is where I sort of always, I'm slightly confused. I do a lot of consultancy for American SaaS companies in terms of how do you build a channel in EMEA. And I'm typically speaking to salespeople, right? That's typically who you're speaking to, sales leaders. And I sort of sit there and go, do you sell your product like this? No, you obviously ask the customer what their pain points are, what they're trying to achieve, and then we integrate into that strategy.
And what do we do with partnerships?
What do we do with partnerships?
Here's the stuff, sell it.
We assume we know what you're doing and we just ram it down your throat, right? And you go, that's never a cohesive, it will never work to build a sustainable sales strategy, and it will work even less to build a sustainable partnership strategy. And so my gut is always find the easiest answer, which is just bloody pick up the phone and ask the guy, right? And he'll tell you what is important to him. And then we orientate the strategy, and we talk a lot here about 2-sided strategies. I need a partner strategy, partner messaging and partner value. And I need end user strategy, end user value. And then I just pull the 2 things together. If you get those 2 things broadly correct, you're probably going to be very successful.
And it's interesting how much partners want to tell you because they have an interest in it as well. And I've worked with one organization once and that were also very much internally focused. I said, well, come on, let's who are your stakeholders? Who are your partners? Let's invite them for an evening and ask them. Well, it took them about a year to think about that. And then they found, maybe it's a good idea. And so we started inviting like the top 20 partner stakeholders, clients. And the interesting thing was all 20 of them came except for one, and he was on holiday. And he said, I miss it. Sorry, can I join next time? Because everybody was willing to discuss with everybody, even with the 19 people in that one room. They were discussing ideas about how this organization could improve. And so they're very much willing to share all the knowledge and insights that they have. And in the end, I think 3 great ideas came out that they implemented, and they were on their way.
Excellent. Look, Ard-Pieter, it's been an absolute pleasure. Listeners, if there's one thing you can take from this podcast, find the easiest solution, speak to your partners, get the answer, and we look forward to seeing you next week.